Student Success, Built by Design, expanding the human potential for today's students. Welcome to Student Success, Built by Design. In this podcast, we explore the fundamental question of how the built environment impacts student success. We will showcase specific design and build achievements of the San Diego Community College District's $3.5 billion bond measure HH, whose goal is to further our education and student success mission by designing and constructing learning environments that don't simply host students, but elevate them, academically, personally, and socially. Therefore, we design with a clear purpose and build with mission. Welcome back to our podcast on Student Success, Built by Design. Today, we're discussing social needs. We'll be diving deeper into student success that we discussed in our second episode. We'll be engaging our panel on the third layer of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, social needs of love and belonging. We'll be exploring the design of the built environment and how it can impact the student experience and their success. We want to welcome back our guests, Dr. Joel Peterson, San Diego Community College District Vice Chancellor and Executive Operations Officer, Aurora Ayala, San Diego Community College District Associate Vice Chancellor for Facilities, Risk Management, and Operations, and Andrea Stalker, PBK Architects Principal, Director of Higher Education, and myself, Jeff Johnson, PBK Architect, Principal, Director of Design and Educational Planning. So I wanted to welcome everyone back, and today we're going to be getting into a little bit more detail, but just a little bit of review. On our episode 1, we were talking about defining student success. I think we had a great conversation on really understanding a little more about the personal, social, and professional aspects of the student experience. And then in our second episode, we were talking about health and habitability, safety, and security. And we got into a lot of great ideas of now getting into a little bit more of the spaces and how they connect with that student experience. And so for today, now getting into a little bit more detail of the psychological needs, social needs related to connectivity, friendship, community, and sense of belonging. So as we get into this question, wanted to get a little bit more kind of general understanding of this topic. And so to Dr. Peterson, can you start us off with kind of breaking down Maslow's psychological and social needs and what they are?
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the topic. It's a fascinating one. It's been around for a long time since Maslow brought up or formulated this hierarchy of needs in the 1950s. It's actually the third layer that we're talking about. First layer is physiological needs, second layer is safety needs, and the third layer then is love and belonging needs or psychological, which we're going to spend time on today. And then there are additional ones as esteem needs and self-actualization needs. So love and belonging includes social needs, including friendship, intimacy, trust, and acceptance within family or groups. And then esteem needs are such things as the need for respect, for reputation, recognition, dignity, and self-confidence. And the top of the pyramid, as it were, would be the self-actualization, the desire to reach one's full potential, personal growth, and self-fulfillment. One of the key parts that Maslow brought out is that what he called prepotency, or the lower level needs are generally more crucial. And if they are not met, the person cannot effectively pursue higher level needs. But he also pointed out that there was what he called nonlinearity, which means that while presented as sort of a hierarchy, Maslow noted that these needs can be partially satisfied simultaneously. For instance, you could have your esteem needs and your love and belonging needs being met simultaneously because they may be done by other groups and other individuals that you relate to. And what makes this model so powerful is that it has been able to be used extensively, not only in psychology, but like what we're doing now in education and in business, but it also explains how when we are doing design and construction, that we can create a built environment that specifically addresses these kinds of needs, either in individual ways or in a collective way.
That's great. Actually, that really helps us to understand kind of our previous discussion on student success and the built environments. How does this start to relate to Measure HH projects and the built environments that we're creating?
That's a great question. When we look at all of our projects, the first thing that we want to make sure is that it's meeting that physiological layer first and foremost, making sure that the water is going to be clean, air is going to be pure, that it's going to allow people to be able to have their biological needs met, adequate restrooms, et cetera. And then we want to ensure that safety is there, that the space feels safe, it has safety components, railings, et cetera. And then what we're going to really spend time talking about now with the love and belonging, the social needs, including friendship and intimacy and trust. We want to have environments that certainly are not like prisons or where there feels like there's oversight. If you have all these security cameras everywhere and you feel like you're being monitored, that can fundamentally undermine the components of things like trust and acceptance.
Excellent. And we're going to be talking a little bit more detail about certain project types. And relating to that, Andrea, as we're talking about these kind of building blocks, what are some of the things that kind of support this socialization and relationships and this interaction that we're talking about for students?
One of the things that we can do across all project types is provide for interaction of people at different scales. So, providing spaces and places where you can interact with one or two people and form quite intimate conversations, relationships, identities, and then to expand out into a slightly larger scale or group size. And so you have a somewhat immediate community that you're connecting to and can interact with, and that requires a larger space and a different design of those spaces to encourage interaction. And then finally, to your broader context of community, and how do you bring just the whole built environment into a single place that then you feel you have a sense of belonging. So being able to tie architecture and the built environment to our understanding about how people form relationships, so that you have the close and the immediate, you have your sort of immediate community, and then you have your broader community that you have a sense of community or belonging to. And this translates very closely to like actual physical sizes of spaces and then how we organize ourselves within those spaces. So, as simple as having furniture that allows you to face each other and form small groups and have conversations versus other ones that are more individual or um, solitary in nature.
Andrew, I think you bring up a really good point when your comments right now focus more on sort of spaces enabling human connections and relationships. But something you talked about, that the overall framework of the built environment, individuals, I would suggest, create also a relationship with the inanimate physical built environment. That buildings can make you feel a certain way, a space can make you feel a certain way. You feel connected or not connected, you feel a relationship with it, which then can enable relationships with other people. But you may have something where you got great relationships, you're there with a group of friends and you walk into a building and something about the building, it's dingy, it's musty, lots of security cameras, and immediately, even though your relationships with the people haven't changed at all, suddenly the building is hindering that and minimizing that because of the relationship with the physical environment.
Right, that context or built environment is turning you away, right? It's off-putting versus what we hope architecture and design can achieve is creating a sense of place that you feel you belong, right? And so we often find that to do that in architecture, then you want to be able to reflect back to people who they are and that they're comfortable there, right? So that that sense of belonging can facilitate relationships.
Or when we think of how built environments can make one feel like you're trusted, and we've all been, unfortunately, with some of the post-pandemic issues, walking into retail stores where suddenly everything is locked behind various things and you just feel untrusted versus some other places where you walk in and it's all on display. You have the ability to go and pick things up and touch them, and you feel then trusted in that have people have confidence in you. So clearly the built environment does that.
Well, and it's a great topic, actually, talking about the scale and actually the variety and diversity of the types of spaces that we really need for students to engage, whether it be a small group or a large group. And I'm wondering how, maybe to Aurora, like how has that played out or that you've seen on campus, the impact of design and construction affecting these kind of experiences?
I think it goes right in line with what Dr. Peterson and Andrea are saying. I think we've seen it across all of our projects that when we design with intent, when our spaces really do say you belong here and our students feel it, like where you can tell because they linger. You can tell because they will intentionally stay in a place and just have conversations and that's their spot during their breaks. They enjoy the environment that they're in because we designed with intent. And to like what Dr. Peterson was saying earlier, if we decide by functional, and sometimes when we're looking at total cost of ownership, we're trying to not be so thorough in our design and just make it a room. So throw some chairs. Like we see that students don't want to hang out. They don't feel like that space was meant for them. They don't want to show up. They come in and they come out.
Well, that's a great point. And as we get into more detail, maybe some good examples, as we talk about athletics, the idea of building community or having community experience and campus pride, those kind of ideas, we start to see that how the shaping of a space or the color and the impact of bringing a body of people together, having that experience. I was wondering, Dr. Peterson, how have these type of spaces been successful in meeting some of these social needs that you're talking about? What are some of kind of the best cases?
I would think that some of our best spaces for supporting social connectivity and a sense of belonging has been our food services areas where we want students to feel immediately welcome, that we give great sight line visibility into the food prep area so that people trust what is being made for them, and then that they feel very welcome to come there and make their orders, that we don't make ordering the food difficult. And then at the same time, that there's many areas that they can sit either by themselves. So there are sort of private nooks, but then there are communal tables that people can sit at where they can be with other students or with faculty in a very open and light and airy kind of environment so that even though they are protected from the outside environment, we in Southern California often have sometimes hot days in the summertime, but at the same time, we have so much light and everything that we're bringing the outside in, and there's a lot of visibility. So I would say that those kind of spaces, we've been very good with these student centers where we combine one, the basic need of, say, food and drink to keep your physiological needs met, and at the same time that we make the space warm and welcoming, the smells of the food get circulated nicely, and then having the good visual lines and the ability for you to connect over shared tables or to find a privacy area where you might want to have some time to yourself as you reflect and or study.
That's great. So, as it relates to athletics and some of the projects that we have in Measure HH, are there specific spaces that exemplify those ideas, like a gymnasium, or we even talked
Yeah,
about like locker
that's a
rooms
great
and
point. That probably when you talk about social connections, maybe the two not opposite ends of the spectrum per se, but very different ones. Is one is our student housing, which really focuses on making people feel belonging because this is your home. And this is the place where you should feel safest, most comfortable, where you can be yourself. And then you have things like athletics, where it's all about allowing people to demonstrate the highest performances of human physical activities and for people to be able to not only just observe it, but to engage and add to the energy of it and celebrate the achievements. And so it's a very public space for the athletics, where student housing is much more private space. But at the same time, in each facility, you have the opposite too. In student housing, you're going to have gathering places that are more public. You have indoor courtyards, et cetera. And within athletic complexes, even though it's a very public kind of thing, you have to make sure that you allow people to be able to, go to the restroom or to be able to, look after a phone call or something like that. So you give intimate spaces that people have the ability to pull away from the crowds and the noise as well.
yeah, that's a great contrast between the two different types. They're very different. One's a performance, and like you said, the energy of a student in performing. There's a thing that kind of builds and rallies. But then for housing, it's very different. I was wondering, Aurora, in kind of building these spaces and maintaining them, is there a difference? This kind of public oriented facilities. How does that work for what you've experienced on campus?
Well, it's a different type of stewardship. So when we're managing facilities that serve not just the students but the community, and kind of going back to what Dr. Peterson was talking about, athletics, the community, the athletics community, it's very different because our stakes around our stake in the facility side is around the maintenance, the upkeep, making sure that the experience that the first round of students received when the building was built is the same experience that the community and the students receive 5 years later. So it's a lot of responsibility. And when it comes to grass, our grass needs to be green. Whether it's 5 years, 10 years, our students can't have any holes in the grass. There's a safety component to that. So I definitely appreciate the design behind athletics when you're taking in consideration the maintenance of it. And there is a huge responsibility that we feel on the facilities as the owners, because we have potential athletes, professional athletes training on our facility, and the design, the experience that they have can impact their future and our community.
Aurora, when you were talking, it brought to mind that, you oversee another key sort of concept, and that is this broken window concept. That if we don't maintain and keep things up, and you said it really well, that if the experience on day one isn't the same as the experience at year 5 or at year 10, and so it really comes down to is that sense of belonging and feeling like this is made for you is when people can also feel that they aren't walking into places that have a broken window that's been broken for 2 months, or that there's a pothole in the middle of a athletic field that hasn't been fixed in a long time. So I think you bring up an extremely salient point that it's not just good enough to then design, but we have to make sure that the design, that the day in and day out occupation and use of the space meets what the design was intended for.
And that's a great point. And to Andrea, how do we work through design or have that accountability or that trust as we're talking about with design and construction that we're going to have that element of respect, or is it the quality of design that keeps that continuity all the way through the project through its life cycle? What are your thoughts?
Let's see. So I think when we think about designing for a sense of belonging, particularly for an athletics project, that the role that branding and graphics can help instill in that sense of pride can go really a long, long way. And that can be infused at every level, right? It can be infused in the smaller individual spaces, in the locker itself, into the team room, into the corridors, into the public realm experience of let's see, comprehensiveness of design as we think about it from like the smallest to the largest elements, and having a comprehensive approach to signage and wayfinding, color and graphics, and then branding. All of that ties in so that your user experience, whether you're that student athlete or you're the public community coming in, says that like, oh yeah, we are Olympians, let's say, if you're at your Mesa College athletic
Hmm.
complex, right? And you have that sense of pride and that sense of belonging. And then that sense of belonging helps enhance the relationships that you can form, whether you're on a team or you're coming there to participate as a spectator.
That's a great point. And, the idea of community engagement, there's once it's built, there's the experience that they have. But one idea, the one that we talked about is what's that engagement like even during the process, whether it be design or during construction, where the community can kind of find some ownership or build that trust or be informed about what's happening as it's being built. What are your ideas, Aurora?
Um, well, construction for us is very intentional, and community engagement is extremely intentional. It's not just from the ribbon cutting or the groundbreaking, which everybody loves to attend, but we are pretty intentional about making sure that our community, when I say community, I really mean our students, our staff, our faculty, and everyone that does not attend our community college, but is within the community involved in some way or another. We do it by providing cameras, by providing updates, newsletters, intentional promotion of everything that we're doing during construction. We've realized that a lot of people love seeing something come to life. They feel like they're part of it just by watching it. And so we do that by the branding, by the signage, by all the communication that our team puts out. We've noticed it also from being intentional of reaching out to our CTE program. Are some of our students that are in our courses now might be students that are going to be wrapping up the construction of these projects. They're part of the life of the construction. So it definitely is community engagement in all aspects. And there's an investment. There's a real ownership that we're all feeling, no matter how you're involved with this project. There's a pride that's coming out of what we're doing here.
I might suggest that, again, Aurora's responsibilities include something that I also believe is instrumental when we talk about the maintenance, that you design a building, but part of what you design is the maintainability and the circulation, not just of the occupants, as in the students and faculty and so forth, but also the circulation of the custodial and maintenance staff. And one of the best ways to make people feel like they belong and that they are welcome is that we train our maintenance staff and our custodial staff and our ground staff to be friendly and professional, that they greet the students, that they greet faculty members. And we hear this all the time from faculty and staff about how much they appreciate a given individual custodial worker or a given individual grounds worker, not only because they're doing the work and people can then see the care and effort that the institution is providing through these individuals, but these individuals themselves make people feel welcome. And the fact that we have buildings at night that have custodial staff make people feel less alone and potentially when they're feeling more vulnerable in an evening sense. And they know when they've got people that are there working on the building or around the building. So it isn't just the design, but it's the people that will occupy it in maintaining it are a crucial component of this belonging. And how well you do that, if you never see people cleaning or working or about the business of taking care of the facility, people wonder then who does it? These empty hallways. And, so it is something that I'm not sure if Aurora goes and does her scheduling of these with that in mind, but I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't think about that.
It sounds like community building is not just in the construction or the design. You're actually talking about the people, so that the people on the campus actually feel that they have ownership, that this is their place. And I've been to many different facilities where you can tell that care, that it's not just a job, it's actually they're surveyed with students. So I think that's a great way to bring it back to that student success is that it's a special place for them. One thing I'd like to get into a little bit more details on your student housing. And Dr. Peterson, you had talked about some of the aspects of some of the dormitories and some of the dining. Can you get into a little bit more detail about some of these community building aspects when designing student housing?
Sure, and I would call you out for using an antiquated term, dormitories. Um, we don't really use that term much anymore because it tends to evoke what probably you and I had as student housing, which was a big square, multi-floor cinder block building that had a central long hallway with a whole bunch of doors going down both sides, and you had, a lavatory at one end and you had showers at the other end. And so you'd have a male floor and alternating male female floors. We instead are realizing that society is evolving. The coeducation also means commingling, and that we have a spectrum of identities and so forth that we need to be welcoming to, so that they feel that this is their home. So we've taken an approach where we have our first facility that we are building for housing is 284 units that range from single bedroom efficiency apartments where you got a single room that acts as a bedroom and a kitchenette and living area, to then two-bedroom apartments to four-bedroom apartments. But we also have four-bedroom suites that we call them. Main difference there is it doesn't have a full kitchen, but it has microwave, refrigerator, and a sink. But what we know is that a lot of people don't actually really cook, as long as they have meals that they can warm up and do pre-packaged, pre-made food is what a lot of students these days use. So we try to be economical by having a lot of those suites because it's a good use of space. But we also want to respect those people who do want to participate in some of the culinary aspects. But that's inside the places. But we then have these circulation areas where people can gather outside of not only their bedrooms within the apartments, but then outside of the apartments on a given floor. And then we have targeted vending, smart vending machines that we are going to have different cuisines on different floors so that floor 5 may be known as the kind of Latin food and floor 2 may be the Caribbean cuisine vending machines and so forth. So you give each floor a certain identity and a commonality feel. And that belonging, again, we are color coding. So floor 1 might be purple, floor 2 may be green, floor 3, in terms of accent, red or something, so that there is a way that you realize very quickly if you got out on the wrong floor, you live on the green floor and you suddenly realize there's red all around you. But it also helps to give people a quick reason to connect and create communities within the broader community of the housing complex.
That's a great way to frame the entire experience for that event. And so, Andrea, what's been some of the responses?
Really a tried and true method within, I would say, contemporary student housing for how we help students form relationships, recognizing that establishing that immediate family. And it's so great that Dr. Peterson, you're providing this mix of unit types because different individuals need different amounts of privacy or desire different amounts of privacy or separation. So having an option where you can be alone almost all the time, or apartments or suites where you have more interaction. So having a choice is super beneficial for allowing someone to feel comfortable in their home environment and space. And then establishing that what we call that floor mate or that floor community, and having that 30 to 40 people that you can really relate to at a given time. And it's your support group, it's your immediate community that you go to while still feeling like you're a part of that broader community, and recognizing that that broader community is supported by many of the amenities that you're providing in the space, like your outdoor courtyards that are gathering spaces, or places where you can go for multi-purpose events, or larger, broader community oriented things that brings everyone together. And that establishment of really those 3 layers allows you then to develop different levels of relationship that are so important for someone's sort of personal and social success, that we know is that critical part of then achieving academic and professional student success.
This has been a great conversation about what we're doing with Measure HH throughout the design, and also talking about construction of each of these projects. Were there any kind of final comments, kind of what we've kind of discussed that the audience might want to know?
Well, one thing is, again, I'll bring it back to Aurora's area. We have talked with other institutions that have been running student housing for a while, many four-year institutions, obviously. And we learned a lot about what makes these things successful is not just the design part, but then again, is how that design supported core functions. These are 24/7, 365 spaces, unlike most classrooms and offices and laboratories and so forth that shut down for most of the day. And so choosing the right kind of floor material, for instance, some places that we visited had done sort of an unfinished concrete floors that looked aesthetically sort of cutting edge, urban, industrial. But then when students went to take their trash out to the trash bin and there was some leaking coming out of the bag, well, guess what? Permanently soaked into the concrete and you couldn't get out. A combination of sight and smell, unfortunately. And so, again, it goes to the whole point of if over time, the use that we designed it not for the use that people are actually going to do, such that over time it becomes less and less habitable and welcoming. And that's a key part that I would suggest that is very important. The design part is really, in this case, in housing, to think about designing for usability and maintainability.
That's excellent. Well, I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to thank our guest today, and what we had covered. I thought it was a great in-depth. And in our next session on student success built by design, we're going to be taking a deeper dive into self-esteem needs, which is part of our psychological needs at our 3rd level, with identity, capacity, and passion. We'll be exploring case studies and student spaces, equity-based design process, and outcomes that will impact the student environment. And it all leads to student success. Thanks for joining our podcast, Student Success Built by Design. This series is brought to you by the San Diego Community College District and its Measure HH Bond program, whose goal is to further its education and student success mission. We'll see you next time. Measure HH is a $3.5 billion voter-approved capital improvement bond program at the San Diego Community College District, transforming its 10 campuses, which are housed in 4 separate colleges that collectively enroll 90,000 students annually. Measure HH will impact nearly 1 million students in its first 10 years,